ESPN senior NBA writer Brian Windhorst is here on the program. I give you the floor. What do you know right now about what the FBI is alleging, Brian?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time this morning reading the indictments. And, there's two cases, as you may know. One is a pretty spectacular in terms of details case about illegal poker games, which I assume somebody will make a movie about someday. And it does involve NBA players or personnel. There are, I think, about 4 people who are charged in both cases. But that is not really what the NBA is going to be focused on and having to deal with. What they're going to have to deal with is the fallout of the other case, which involves illegal inside information on NBA games. Now, a lot of this was already known. Jonte Porter has already pled guilty to some of the stuff that's in this indictment. Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat was already known to have been under investigation for a certain game in 2023. The NBA, in fact, is probably going to have to answer for why they allowed him to keep playing while the FBI was very clearly still investigating and still planning on possibly charging him, which they have done. And then there is a whole slate of incidences of people having leaking inside information of when players might be available for games. And some of these players are gigantic names. They're not named in the indictment, but if you pull back one layer, you can figure this out. In fact, Chauncey Billups isn't even named in this indictment, the head coach of the Trailblazers, who's now been put on leave by the league office, by the way, as Terry Rozier, as I'm sure you've told your viewers. Chauncey is just described as co-conspirator 8, who is described as an Oregon resident who played in the NBA from 1997 to 2014.
Yes, we can figure that out now. Okay. It is, yes.
So this is what the new information is, which is that Damon Jones and Chauncey Billups use their positions as coaches of teams to tell people who may be available. And what it appears to be Damian Lillard and LeBron James, potentially also Anthony Davis. I'm not 100% sure about that.
So wait a minute, let me just jump in here. So you're saying Chauncey Billups, it's not just the poker thing, that he is also in this indictment alleged to have given out information as to who's playing and who's not?
Yes, that's correct. And that's what I'm not downplaying the poker thing, but
no, I hear you. I hear you.
The NBA isn't concerned today with whether people who are playing in illegal poker games got defrauded. I mean, they may feign that they care about that, but they don't care about that. They care about sensitivity information about their players and their games. And so what Chauncey is being accused of is, there was a tanking job going out in 2023 going on because people were really interested in getting their hands on Victor Wembanyama. And the Blazers weren't participating in that tanking situation. And there was a moment in March of that year where the Blazers basically seemed to have decided to put their tank in overdrive. And they decided they were not going to play their regulars anymore, but specifically they were not going to play Dame Lillard. And there was this day, I can't remember who they were playing, maybe the Jazz. Damian was listed as probable with a calf tightness. And according to the indictment, I'm not saying it happened, I just said according to the indictment, Chauncey told somebody that Dame wasn't going to play amongst other players, even though he was listed as probable. As the day went along, he was then switched to questionable and then out, and then he never played again the rest of the season. And the Blazers lost 15 of their last 17 games and ended up with Scoot Henderson, the number 2 pick, but not the number 1 pick. And then Damon Jones, who was sort of a volunteer assistant with the Lakers for several years. They accuse him of saying that LeBron was, and they don't say LeBron's name, to be clear. They just say, they call him player 1 or player 2 or something like that. But they reference a game against the Bucks in 2023. It was the game after LeBron broke the scoring record, Kareem's scoring record. That game was against the Thunder, and LeBron was a relatively late scratch in that game. And the obviously not having LeBron, who was really close to the peak of his powers at that point, at least for that age, didn't play, and that information was used by people that Damon Jones told about it before it was public information. Then a year later, Damon apparently, according to the indictment, told these co-conspirators again that LeBron or Anthony Davis, it's not clear which, because both were on the injury report for a certain game against the Thunder, that they would either not play in that game or play less than normal minutes. At the time, the Lakers were under 500, and the Thunder were a very strong team. They had Chad Holmgren, he was playing. They had Jalen Williams, he was playing, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander all played in that game. And in fact, LeBron and AD did play in that game, did play their regular minutes, and the Lakers pulled the upset. They had been not favored, and they came back and won. And the bettors, according to the indictment, the bettors were pissed off at Damon and asked for their money back that they had paid him for the information. So it doesn't even imply that this information was always accurate, but just that it was given. And there's also another game that was referenced between a Cavs and Magic game, also in 2023. Now, what I think I just want to point out is that this is so what the NBA is going to have to deal with here.
Yes.
Is obviously players with pulling themselves out of games with unders, but we frankly have known about that, unfortunately, for 18 months. That's the Jonte Porter thing from 18 months ago. The thing that the NBA is going to have to deal with, and they already have dealt with in a certain extent, Rich, is that for decades, there has been this soft spot where people involved with the team, whether it's the players or the other people, support staff, know well before the injury list is changed that a player is going to play. So let's just say you have an average Thursday in November. There's a shoot around in the morning. A player is listed as questionable. Everybody at that shoot around sees that player can't walk. Okay. He's still listed as questionable, even though everybody knows he's not playing that night. That has happened for decades. And there have been people who could have passed that information on. Now, since sports betting became legal, the NBA, they recognize that this is a soft spot. And so they very vastly tightened their injury reporting. They now do injury updates all during the day. And they fine teams if they don't accurately tell injury situations. But that said, there is still this soft spot, largely in some cases because the teams don't want to let their opponents know who's going to be playing. And also, sometimes it's genuinely a game time decision. Sometimes you don't know whether a player is going to be able to play until he gets out there and warms up. And how does that calf feel? How does that, wrist feel? And so, but there's this gray area there. And so what I suspect will happen out of this, I don't think that this is something that is a scandal that is going to rock the foundation of the league. I mean, I'm sure that some people will get on television and say that. This is a problem that the NBA has known about and has been trying to address. There are instances now where it's coming out that people are exploiting it, but they are going to probably have to tighten it up even more and pressure teams more to be more honest about player availability, so that a volunteer assistant coach or anybody else may not be able to give inside information, that the information is much more transparent.
Well, I mean, in the few minutes I have left with you here, the just at first blush, the issue I think the NBA has got to square for a lot of those who are observing and fans is, how does Terry Rozier get arrested for something that the NBA apparently cleared him of?
That is absolutely the NBA is going to have to answer that question. And as you probably know, there's a player under investigation for irregularity right now in Malik Beasley. And there's been, I think, frustration from people that Malik Beasley hasn't had it cleared one way or the other. And this is part of the reason why that I think the NBA is going to have to be extremely careful with this going forward. And you are absolutely right, Rich. The NBA at some point is going to have to explain why Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing. And I just want to point something out. The sports books caught the irregular betting on Terry Rozier the day it happened, the morning it happened, when all of a sudden there was hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in on Terry Rozier unders for a relatively meaningless game in March, involving the Charlotte Hornets. The sports books caught it. They told the NBA right away. And guess what? The NBA, Rozier didn't play the rest of the season, and he had faked the injury, so it wasn't because of the injury. The NBA pulled him. They pulled Jonte Porter too. They flagged Jonte Porter and pulled Jonte Porter. The NBA's measures, their protection measures, the sportsbook's protection measures, triggered this. They caught it. The issue, I think, is, Jonte Porter, they caught, convicted, and tossed him out of the league within weeks. Rozier didn't. And this in this investigation, and I don't know if Terry Rozier is guilty. The NBA obviously didn't feel that he was. They wouldn't have let him play. But this indictment implies that there was a swath of conspirators. There was like his cousin, his cousin's friend. I mean, like all the way down to like low-level guys who won money on this bet and then immediately bet on other games and lost all the money and had to tell other people, man, I lost the money. I'll have to get it to you. Like really low-level people who were betting hundreds of dollars on this game. In addition, people were betting tens of thousands. So my point about saying that is that there was a wide swath of people who were benefiting from this inside information on Rozier, according to the feds, and that the NBA either didn't discover that or knew about that and cleared him, they're going to have to answer for. But this is not like, I hate to bring up the name. This is not
Donaghy.
like Tim Donaghy.
Yeah.
This is sloppy stuff that they need to be tightened down. I know the people who are going to attack the league and people who are against gambling are going to be able to hammer on this, and there's some points to be made there. I do not think this is going to rock the NBA to its foundation, based on the information that I have. Obviously, more information could come out,
right? But
it is definitely very interesting, particularly the poker aspect of it.
Certainly, it involves a head coach as well, Brian. I mean, that's particularly
it
shocking.
Involves inside information about whether a player is going to play.
Right.
I think the key is, did Chauncey tell the guy and say, go make a bet on the game?
Got it.
Or did Chauncey tell the guy because he was having loose lips, and then that guy went out and made money on it?
Understood.
That's the question. I don't know the answer to that, but that nuance is going to be important.
All right, and I know your time is limited, so I do want to give you the floor on Wembanyama. I mean, that was insane. Like an actual conversation about an actual game that actually happened. And I mean, 40 and 15, no turnovers. That is exactly what everybody, when you first were visiting France to check it all out, was envisioning that type of performance right from jump, Brian.
And when I met his coaches who coached him when he was 12, 13, 14 years old, one of the things that they said was that they begged him, Victor, please go by the basket. Every step away from the basket you take, your height advantage gets mitigated a little bit more. And Victor really didn't want to hear it. Victor wanted to be a big man with guard skills. He didn't want to be defined by his height. You may have noticed that just this week he complained about people focusing on his height. And the Spurs have been, Rich, Victor is very, very tall. He's taller than he's listed, okay? The Spurs looked at him at 7'3" coming into the league. He was not 7'3". He was taller than that. Then this year, because the NBA cracked down on it, they corrected it to 7'5". I think 7'5" is still wrong. I think he's taller than 7'5".
Wow.
I started talking about it on TV. Victor started complaining about it, and the Spurs changed it from 7'5" back to 7'4" in the last few days and said it was a clerical error. I don't think there was a clerical error involving his thing, but he doesn't like being defined as somebody who's really tall. He wants to be defined as a great basketball player. So throughout his life, he wanted to focus on being a great basketball player, not just a tall basketball player. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why he's so special, because he is this big with guard skills. But here's the problem, Rich. It still is very helpful to be very tall. So last year, he averaged 9 3-pointers a game, and he did okay on them. He shot 35%. That's okay. That's not bad. But when you take 19 shots a game and 9 of them are 3-pointers and you're 7'5" or whatever, that is not the best use of your skill set. Mm-hmm. And so Victor has come around, and now the league is in trouble. Already in the preseason, the scouts started flagging it because they noticed last year 40% of his shots were in the paint through the season. In the preseason, I know it's a small sample size.
Sure.
75% of his shots were in the paint. Okay. Do you know how many? So last night he took 2 3-pointers. Do you know how many times last year, Rich, he took 2 3-pointers in a game?
Go for it.
0. He took under 5 3-pointers once. Okay. He had 11 free throws last night. Okay. Do you know how many times last year he took 11 free throws in a regulation game? He had a couple of.
Same number. Okay.
So now we have a guy who's 7 foot whatever, who has decided, I'm going to play like that. I'm going to play bully ball. And he's also stronger. It's not just It's not just that he's come around on it. He's also gotten more bulkier and stronger. You look at photos of him from 2 years ago and now, yeah, he's not going to make you remember The Rock, but he is much stronger. And this same thing happened to Giannis, except for Giannis came around on it in about his 8th year.
Oh.
Okay? Like last night, for example, Giannis took 21 shots in the paint because Giannis knows he's unstoppable. But it took one of the years that Giannis won MVP, so I'm not exactly criticizing him. He took 5 threes a game. It's insane. He's a terrible three-point shooter. Last night he took 3. He probably shouldn't have taken any. Giannis figured it out and has become unstoppable. Now at age 21, Victor, I think, has figured it out that he needs to play like he's 7, whatever. And the league could be in trouble because of it, as you saw last night.
Thank you, Brian Windhorst. Really appreciate the time. I know you've got a lot going on. Let's do this on the regular, as you know. Take care of yourself.
Sounds good,
brother.
Rich. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Right back at you. Our favorite. Bar none, our favorite bar none.
Wow.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.